What's going on, everybody? I'm John Opinion Sports, and today we're going to talk about some possible free agents that will follow the coaches here to New York. Every new GM you see, they bring in their guys, and the new coaches they bring in their guys as well. Dave Gettleman brought over Jonathan Stewart, James Bradbury. When James Bettcher was hired, we saw most of the Arizona's defense come with him. Gettleman signed Marcus Golden, Jonathan Martin. There's a name I wish I forgot. I think we're going to see some similar moves in this year's free agency. So I looked through the free agents from the Chiefs because we hired Mike Kafka as OC, from the Ravens and the Buffalo Bills. There's no way I can go over all the possible guys we could sign from them teams, so I chose two from each that I thought was a possibility. I excluded players that I've already talked about in other free agent videos. This will probably be my last video on possible free agents until we start making some actual signings or we get serious rumors on some of these guys. If you're new to the channel, I've made a free agent video for just about every position other than quarterback, running back, and safeties. You might enjoy them. Maybe that's something you'd like to go check out. But I started with the Kansas City Chiefs. There was some intriguing names on their defense, but I focused more on offense because that's the guys, Kafka has relationships with. I was split on two wide receivers, Demarcus Robinson and Byron Pringle. I think they'll both get a contract in that $3 million range, but I ultimately chose Byron Pringle as a more likely to sign with the Giants player just because his rookie deal just expired, as with Demarcus Robinson has been with the Chiefs for the last 6 years. I think he's probably going to want to stay and play with them. That's just speculation, but he did have a chance to leave multiple times and stayed. But I think Pringle is a small, little bit better a wide receiver, in my opinion. Now, he's played with maybe the best quarterback in the NFL, so I don't think you can expect the same production if he comes to the Giants. But what I like the most is this kid catches everything thrown his way. Pringle has one of the lowest drop percentages in the NFL. It's 0.1%. He had a decent statistical season with 42 receptions, 568 yards, 5 touchdowns. I just think he's very solid. He'd be great for depth and key moments in games. We've seen what happens in key moments with players like Darius Slayton. Yeah, no more of that. That won't be a problem with Pringle. And if there's an injury at wide receiver, and let's be honest, there's going to be, Pringle can step in and give you decent production. We can't count on John Ross. He's probably not even going to be back. But every time we needed him to step up, he got hurt that first game. I just think Pringle would be an excellent signing and cheap. Now, the next guy I think could be a signing, maybe my favorite in this whole video, that's offensive lineman Andrew Wiley. This dude has been clutch for the Chiefs. He's played mostly guard, but there was times he slid over to tackle because of injuries, and he was excellent. He has really held his own on the outside. PFF gave him a 95.4 pass blocking efficiency grade. That's something the Giants haven't had on the right side at tackle in a decade. He's very similar to Nick Gates, a bit of a better player, I think, but I say that to give you kind of the idea of what kind of player he is. I think this signing would be perfect for the Giants. If Matt Peart is cut or moved to guard, you can slot Wiley in at right tackle. You could use him as a swing tackle. The Giants draft a tackle. You can start him at guard if that's what you want to do. You can just use him anywhere on the line. He really would be a nice piece for us, especially if Nick Gates is cut for cap space. We don't really lose that player, that versatile guy on the line. But Andrew Wiley played 527 snaps last season. He had a PFF grade of 67.2. He allowed 4 sacks. Not bad considering how much he actually moved around in Kansas City. If the Giants want to toss him a 2-3 year deal on the cheap, I'm all in on it. Nice cheap option at guard or tackle. So the next team I looked at was the Buffalo Bills. I'm sure Joe Shane will be bringing a couple guys with him, from over there. I've talked about Jerry Hughes possibly coming over, so I'll skip him. I think it's possible Levi Wallace could be a signing. Giants are probably moving on from James Bradbury, so Wallace would make sense. He's more of a zone cornerback, but I do think we could make it work here for just a season. He'd be a nice holdover till the Giants have the cap to make another big signing or draft a guy early in the draft. But maybe they draft a corner this year early, but I'm not predicting that. Now, Levi Wallace might be too expensive. Spot Track has him getting $9.6 million contract. If the deal he gets is anywhere near that, then I'm out on him. But you never know. With these free agents, you just never know. If you can get him on a 1-year deal, say for $6-7 million, somewhere around there, and if that's possible, then I'm down. And Wallace didn't have his best season last year, but he's just a steady cornerback on the outside. He had a PFF grade of 65.2 last year. He had 2 picks, 50 tackles. I think he can really be a quality cornerback for a season or two for the Giants. Definitely worth a look. Now, the other guy on the Bills that I could see coming over here is Isaiah Mckenzie. He was a depth wide receiver for pretty much the entire season last year until Cole Beasley went down, and then he had a few big games down the stretch. He just flashed big plays. And I really do think he could be a nice weapon for Daniel Jones. You could move him around all across the field, and I trust he'll find production. And I think he's going to be looking for a 1-year prove-it deal. If he could put together a nice season, on top of his production from the Bills' playoff games, he could really set himself up for a nice little contract. Right now, I don't see him getting a big multi-year deal. $4 or $5 million is the high end I could envision for him. $2-3 million is probably more realistic. Mckenzie had a PFF grade of 69.4. He had 20 receptions for 178 yards and 1 touchdown last season. He obviously didn't play much early in the year. I would be super excited if Joe Shane could get this man in the building. Now, I looked over the Ravens defense for a couple of guys. There was quite a few free agents on defense, so I could see Joe Shane just stocking up this offseason. But the first guy I chose was Calais Campbell. We do have an open spot on the interior defensive line, and at this point of Calais Campbell's career, I don't see him fetching any kind of big deal. He could be a huge resource to Dexter Lawrence, Leonard Williams, helping them guys learn a new scheme, and I think he's got a season or two left in the tank. It never hurts to have one more vet in the locker room. I'm not sure if he's a high character guy or not. I haven't really looked into that too much. Now, I've never heard of him being an issue, so there's that. Campbell had a PFF grade of 80.8. He had 46 total tackles and a sack. Now, he missed a few games, but he's been really healthy pretty much his entire career. Now, I did look him up. He did say he's coming back for at least one more season. I think it's completely possible he follows Wink to the Giants. I'm sure he'd like to stay in some system he's already played in, and I'd welcome here with open arms. People will say he's washed. I say blasphemy. I think he's still a productive player. Maybe he's not what he was 4 years ago, but he's still very, very good. Another guy from Baltimore, people probably won't be so high on. I thought of Purnell Mcphee. Now, he had a really bad season for himself last year, but I still wouldn't mind bringing him in to just compete with the other edge rushers on the team. This past season, he had a PF grade of 51.9. That's not great. Only had 1 sack. He did miss some time, I believe 7 or 8 games. And when he did play, he was only getting 36% of the snaps. Now, he's never been a high sack guy. I believe his career high is 7.5 sacks, but he's been a steady depth piece. He'll get you that 3-4 sacks in a season, and that's, coming off the bench on limited snaps. So I think you can bring him in on a vet minimum, let him compete. If it don't work out with the Giants, they lose nothing. I'm not ready to crown Ellerson Smith at this point. We haven't seen much. He was hurt all year. I think the Giants are drafting an edge rusher in one of them first few rounds in this year's draft. So Quincy Roche and Purnell Mcphee coming in on reserve roles really sounds decent to me. Mcphee is great with the little things. He does really well lining up all over the line. He'll even line up middle linebacker and rush up the middle. Runs all them crazy stunts and twists and all that stuff. He's super cheap, vet minimum, and if you find him playing time, he's going to be somewhat productive. So that sounds good to me. But that's it. That's my 2 guys from each team. You guys, let me know what you think of them. I just went with the cheapest options possible. Guys that I can envision coming in here and carving out, maybe not a huge role, but some kind of a backup role. With the way the Giants get hurt every year, we need to get as much depth in here as possible. There obviously was bigger names. But like I said previous, I'd already talked about them on other videos. So if you're wanting to hear more about possible free agents, go check out them videos. I pretty much have one for everybody. That's it for me. Maybe I'll have one more video if I just run through all the free agents and narrow down my absolute favorites. So maybe I'll have one more of these. I'm sure there'll be rumors really soon. And after the combine, free agency is here. We don't got to talk about possible guys. We get to talk about actual player signing. So that's it. That keeps me motivated. Thank you guys. If you're new, subscribe. Got tons of Giant stuff. Last couple days the wife hasn't been feeling well, so I haven't been doing my scouting, but that's coming back here in the next couple of days. So I talk about all the prospects coming out in the draft. But subscribe, and peace.